Model 3 heads toward the Atlantic, Tesla Semi is out and about, Tesla finishes last in a study on self-driving vehicles, and more. It's been a tough news week, but we're finishing strong. This is Tesla Tidbits episode number 350 for January 19th, 2018. We started Electrek today where we learned that we have more Model 3s heading to stores for display. Tesla has confirmed that its New York, Boston, and Aventura, Florida stores will be receiving display Model 3s. Tesla even sent out invites for the Aventura location, encouraging RSVP before January 18th as space is limited. Electrek reports that Tesla has said that they would send display cars by priority of markets where there's already a high demand for Model 3. Not sure that Columbus is going to rank highly on that list, so it may take a minute before I get to sit in one. Over to Teslarati for the next story, and it turns out the Tesla Roadster isn't the only Tesla prototype that needs to feel the rush of wind in its hair. The Tesla Semi was spotted out in public between the company headquarters and the Fremont factory. A short but good quality video shows the Semi running by at a very good clip. Teslarati also breaks out some nice screenshots as well. The most striking feature of the truck to me is the massive single wiper blade. Check out the article and get an eyeful of the Tesla Semi in action. Sticking at Teslarati, they report that the Navigant Research Group has issued a new report on self-driving, putting Tesla dead last among 19 companies rated. Leading the list is GM, Waymo, Daimler-Bosch, Ford, and VW. To say the least, this is an interesting take, considering Tesla is recognized as the far and away leader in the space by most. But it's not completely insane. If they're rating on full self-driving, then this is a plausible result. The only thing we've seen of Tesla's full self-driving capabilities is a single video of a Model X some time ago. More than that, we got to see the deactivation reports that the state requires some time ago, and the fact is that the Model X had a less than spectacular record, essentially a deactivation every 3 miles. But the article wasn't exactly clear on which was being measured, which ironically is kind of the crux of the whole issue of the public understanding on what versions of self-driving does what anyhow. In a great segue, this week's Tidbit of the Week focuses on Autopilot. While most Tesla owners will gush over Autopilot, it does have its shortfalls. First and foremost, as the binnacle tells you when engaging the system, always keep a hand on the wheel and be ready to take over at any time. There are some conditions where the system will do some very odd and outright dangerous things, and you need to be ready to override. If you ignore the car's warnings to take the wheel, it will eventually ask you to take over. If this occurs, you'll be unable to enable Autopilot again until after the car is put into park again. If you continue to ignore the request to take over, the car will eventually slow itself to a stop and put on its hazard lights. While Autopilot shines on the highway, you really need to watch it on other roads. A prime example of this is my personal experience when cresting hills. The car will lose tracking on the lines of the road, and for reasons known only to it, the majority of the time, it'll usually pull a hard right as a result. That hard right on some of my local roads would put me in a rather large ditch. Another thing to be aware of on local roads is that Autopilot will only allow you to set it for a maximum speed of 5 miles per hour over the speed limit. If the car does not detect a speed limit sign, meaning that you'd see no speed limit indicator on the binnacle, your max speed is 45 miles per hour with the Autopilot enabled. This can be particularly frustrating if your car has not seen a speed limit sign in a while and uses outdated GPS information to determine the speed limit. On the flip side, the maximum highway speed for Autopilot is 89 miles per hour. Touch 90, and again your Autopilot system is disabled until the car is put back into park. Don't get me wrong at all, Autopilot is a premier reason to own a Tesla. I'd even go so far as to say a Tesla isn't a Tesla without Autopilot. But the system is far from flawless, and owners and potential owners should be aware of these limitations. Lastly tonight, for those of you who may not follow me on Twitter and possibly miss my video on the subject, a new YouTube policy is being enacted on February 20th that affects the Tesla Tidbits channel. The Cliffs Notes version of this story is that if you have less than 1,000 subscribers and less than 4,000 hours of watched content in the last year, you can't monetize your channel. I'll spare you my opinions on this, as you can watch the video I made on it if you're interested. While YouTube is a very small source of income for this channel, it is nonetheless a source and a huge bummer to lose it. All this is to say, if you've got a YouTube account out there, I'd super appreciate it if you hit the subscribe button for me on the service. Not only does it help with this issue, but it does also help with other folks seeing the channel's content as a recommendation to other channels. As always, thanks for any support you can give the show. Make sure you check out the links to the full stories in the show description. Speaking of that support, check out that Patreon link at patreon.com/Tesla Tidbits. Thanks very much to the super patrons supporting the show at the $10 plus level. They're John Waltower, Drew Schuyler, John Waller, Mark and Sarah Thomas, Ryan Scarborough, Lee Sweet, William Henry Crew III, Dorian Steve Guberman, Bruno Quindici, John Rich, Joey Boots, Ralph and Cheryl Waterhouse, and Adam Raymer Brown. If you can't support the show with dollars, be sure to show your love with positive reviews and subscriptions, as mentioned earlier, on YouTube, iTunes, and other services across the internet, or use the show referral code TS.LA/JON4602 if you're in the market for a new Tesla. It's good for free supercharging for the life of the vehicle. That's it for this week. If you have feedback for me, the best way to be heard is to tweet at Tesla Tidbits and use the hashtag AskTeslaTidbits if you'd like your question to be considered for the show. I'll see everyone back here again next week. Until then, keep it charged and hit the road.